All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast here with your host, Richard Fu from richardfu.com. And guys, I'm right here rocking my 5 o'clock shadow here, but it is in no way comparison to this man I have on the show here. I've been admiring his beard and his facial hair for so long now, ever since I got connected with him. His name is Ryan Michler. He is the founder and host of the Order of Man podcast, and he has such an amazing gift here, and he's built such a huge community of men, and just even watching him do his work has inspired me to actually continue starting more of what I'm doing. And not only that, now I'm just like, wow, just look at what Ryan's doing. He's just showing men how to really be men. And today I'm really excited to have him on because he's not only going to show us his amazing facial hair, but he's also going to share with us the real secrets of what it means to actually face up and front up to your excuses here. And so men, women, listen up here because this man means business. So without any further ado, guys, please welcome Ryan to the show. Ryan, good to have you on.
I appreciate it, brother. That's quite the introduction. I don't know if I can live up to it, but we're going to try today. So I appreciate you.
Man, I'm pretty sure everyone that just saw your video right now, saw your beard, man, they're like falling off your seats because of how well trimmed and groomed you're keeping that, man.
I tried to. Otherwise, that was one of the caveats that my wife said. She says, if you're going to grow your beard, you got to take care of it. And so I try to take care of it for the most part. It's I kind of in the morning, you should see it's like bed beard. So it's like all over the place.
Bed beard.
Yeah, that's right.
You got to take a photo of that and put that up on the internet because I think that'd be hilarious, dude.
Yeah, I probably will at some point. So yeah.
Awesome, man. And, guys, I've been following Ryan and his work for a long time here. And so if you haven't had a chance, make sure you jump on and check out his podcast too, because he just brings on the most amazing guests and pulls out the best information and extracts amazing knowledge from them. But before we get into that, I mean, Ryan, man, for the people who haven't heard about you or Order of Man, could you share a bit more about how you help people and how you actually got there, man?
Yeah, for sure. So Order of Man, I'll start there, is it's a website, it's a blog, it's a podcast dedicated to helping men become better men. So we want guys to be better leaders. And that's something that I'm striving to be. I don't have all the answers figured out, but it's something that I'm working towards. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better husband, community leader, business owner, you name it. Those are things I'm working on. And there was some dark times in my life. We can talk a little bit about that maybe later in the show, but I figured some things out. Again, I don't have it all figured out, but if I can take the lessons and extract the lessons that I've learned the hard way and share those with millions of men across the planet, I feel like I'm doing my work. This is something that burns within inside of me. It's something that drives me. I'm fired up about it. I'm passionate. I'm excited. I'm motivated about it. And so my goal, again, is to help guys become better men. But to answer your question about where this all started, I mean, we could literally go back to the time I was 3 years old. My dad left and he was out of the picture for the most part by the time I was 3 years old. And then I had a couple other stepfathers come into my life who weren't great examples. And I really didn't know anything was wrong until I looked around and I saw my friends who were, playing catch with their dads or going camping with their dads. And I'm like, man, I want that stuff. I didn't have that stuff growing up. And I learned a little bit about what it meant to be a man through the sports I played. I played football and baseball and I wrestled in high school. And so I learned some of that from that, but I really started to struggle when I got married, which was 12 years ago this year. We struggled. I didn't know what a good husband was. I didn't know how he behaved. I didn't know what a good father was like. I just didn't know these things. And my wife and I went through a separation, and that was really the catalyst or the start, the genesis, I guess, if you will, for me starting a journey for myself. And as I went on this journey and I learned a little bit more about what it meant to be a man and how I could be more productive and how I could be a better father, a better husband, these are some of the lessons I learned. And I feel like it's now my life's mission, my life's work to share this thing. And I've never been excited or as passionate about what I'm doing right now and sharing with the guys. And I feel like I'm on the right track because of the engagement and how excited I am. A lot of these guys wanted to have conversations with me and my friends as I told them what I was going through. And I realized that some of the things that I struggled with in my marriage and who I was personally as a man were the same things that a lot of guys are struggling with and dealing with on a daily basis. And so that's why we decided to start Order of Man about a year and a half or so ago. I think it was March of 2015, the end of March, that we got this thing started. And we've been growing ever since. And it's pretty cool to be part of the journey of these thousands of guys that we're now helping.
Yeah, man. And I'm part of that group too, man. I see the activity in there. This is the beautiful part, man. I mean, talk us through this, man. I mean, like, how long did it take for you guys to actually get like activity going on? Because, you can join many groups and then, you see like if you join these business groups on Facebook, it just ends up being like a spam fest, right?
Yeah.
Something special. Like, honestly, there's something special about Auto Men where it's not just like dating coaches spamming their events. They're not just, all these life coaches spamming their other, little blog events on there.
Right.
How have you grown that community in such a way where it's like real men bonding? And like, I've seen some of the posts in there, man. It's like, it's as vulnerable as what you just shared about, your family here.
Yeah.
I'm just like, whoa, I can't believe some people here are just like opening up and the floodgates are like, that's not even giving it the right context. It's bigger than floodgates that are coming out here, man.
Sure. Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with partly because it's for men only. And I've never actually had a woman be upset about that because in my opinion and in my experience, women want to see their men act and behave like men. So this is an opportunity for guys to do that. But I think the dynamic changes too. When you have a group of guys talking compared to a group of guys and women, men and women communicating, the dynamic changes and the conversation changes. And I think a lot of the times men get their egos involved when we get women involved, right? This is as old as man and evolution himself. So I think that's part of it. Hey, that this is a place where guys can talk and it's free of being judged or criticized, you know what I mean? Or thought poorly upon because we're just having conversations, real conversations. The other reason is that I'm willing to share my story. I feel like when we as human beings share our story, what we struggle with, what we're good at, what we're not good at, and we're very vulnerable with who we are, I think we give permission for others to do the same. And for a long time, and even now in the world is this persona, right? We want to be this persona. We want to portray this particular person or image or thought that we have of ourselves. But the more that I'm vulnerable, the more that I expose myself and say, hey, look, here's what I struggled with. Here's where I'm not great. The more that I see other guys willing to have that conversation as well. Outside of that, we have some pretty tight, I guess you'd say, regulated guidelines within the group. That way I look at it from the perspective of cannibalism. I think a lot of groups cannibalize themselves. Like they build these groups and you get 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 people in there. And then all of a sudden they want to sell all the time and everybody's selling and then it starts to eat itself up. And so we've avoided that because we just want this to be a resource where men can go, say what's on their mind, give real answers without feeling like they're going to get ostracized or beaten up for giving a real answer that a guy might give to another guy. And that's what we're doing. And so we're seeing growth within the group of anywhere between 60 to 100 guys per day are joining the group, which is really exciting to see.
Oh man, and it's beautiful. And I remember when I was putting together the Ultimate Man Summit and I got introduced to you, man, I was like, oh man, this guy's like next level, man. This Ryan guy, he real like rugged man. Like I love that about you. And I love that you bring up the point about vulnerability, that you bring out your own vulnerabilities, not because you're doing it in a place where you're like, oh, look at me, Richard, I feel sorry for me, but it's actually, dude, this is what's happening in my life. And this is the key part, I think, when people are sharing vulnerability is this is what I'm going to do to actually move forward with that and how I'm going to leverage what I'm sharing right here to become more powerful, to become more of who I am. And
exactly.
Talk us through that, man. Talk us through, like, a lot of us, and this is what we were talking about before we got rolling here, is, we get stuck in excuses. I think one of the big things on why we get stuck on excuses is because we don't want to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
We throw all these other excuses out. And I know this is something that you're passionate about at the moment. And so talk us through this, man. Talk us through how do people use these excuses to, one, block off their vulnerability, but also two, to actually block them from achieving more of what they actually want?
Yeah. I'm big into this just because I have created a lot of excuses for a lack of results in my life, within my family, within my business and community, all the things I want to do. And I came to the conclusion that reality was I was just creating a lot of excuses. Now, what's nice about excuses when we craft these and fabricate these excuses in our own lives is that we shift the responsibility, we shift the blame. And I think that's why we do it as human beings. Because Richard, if it's your fault, and I can blame it on you, then that doesn't damage my pride. It doesn't damage my ego. And so I think a lot of the times what we end up doing is we say, hey, it's beyond my control. And we throw up our hands and we say, hey, the economy's bad, or the political environment's bad, or this person let me down, or this guy didn't do this. And so we shift that blame so that it wasn't our fault and that we weren't wrong. And I think men are probably more guilty of this in general than women are. And so it's something that I'm constantly talking with the guys, like, own your choices, own your responsibilities. I talk with my oldest son. He's 8 years old all the time, and he knows this now more than anybody else, is own your mistakes. Just own your mistakes. If you mess up, it's okay. We all mess up. There isn't anybody out there who hasn't messed up, but very few are the people who say, hey, I messed up, and here's what I'm going to do moving forward. And that's the reality of excuses. If we can find a way to put the responsibility where it really belongs, where it rests solely on our shoulders, yes, it might bruise the ego. Yes, it might hurt a little bit, letting others know that we're not invincible, that we are human. I get that. That hurts. That hurts me too. But when we do that and we eliminate those excuses, what we do is we give ourselves the power back. Because, Richard, when I say it's your fault, or I say it's the political environment, or I say it's the economy is the reason that I'm not successful, what I'm doing is I'm giving away all of my power to excel, to succeed in life, because it's just at the mercy of the winds, like fate or whatever is going to happen. But when I say to myself, no, the reason my business didn't take off the way that I would have liked it to rests solely on my shoulders. I should have been more aware of this, or I should have executed this, or I should have learned this information. That gives me the power then to say, okay, I didn't get this right. Now what? What can I do now that will help me move forward or help me excel moving forward? And that's why I think if we can find a way to reduce our excuses and eliminate those excuses, we give ourselves more control and more power and growth that comes with it.
I love it, man. I love it. It's the truth, man. It's the truth is that you're right. When you say power, it's all about, you become the victim, right? I'm a victim because the economy sucks. I'm a victim because that other person screwed up and then now I lost all my money. But at the end of the day, you made a choice. And the other side of my brain here, Ryan, ticks off, and it's asking this question. It's begging this question to be asked. And it's asking, so Ryan, is there a way then, if we flip on the other side where we don't make excuses, but we take too much responsibility, how do we identify that fine line?
That's a good question. One that I haven't been asked. I mean, off the cuff, my knee-jerk reaction is there's no way for you to take too much responsibility. I mean, you don't want to take on things that aren't necessarily your fault, but if you take on the responsibility, let's say, I'm going to just throw out a hypothetical example. Let's say that you are in a company and you're maybe a middle manager for something like that, and you've got a team that you're managing, and the majority of the team lets the ball drop, right? They let things go. They don't hit deadlines. They're not doing what they're asked. It would be very easy for you to say, well, this team member didn't do this, and this team member didn't do this, and this person didn't do that, and that's the reason why me as the middle manager wasn't able to accomplish the objective. But as true as some of that might be, how does that serve you? How does it serve the company? How does it serve your ability to advance within the company? How does it serve the ability to get that project done? How does it serve the other people, the clients or customers that you're trying to help? It doesn't. But if you said, hey, look, the team dropped the ball, but who was responsible for the team? I was, right? I mean, I was the leader. So what didn't I communicate to my team? What resources didn't I get to my team? Who is on the team that maybe I knew shouldn't be on the team, but because I'm a wimp, I decided I didn't want to let that person go? And how did that person impact the rest of the team? So you're starting to take responsibility and you're starting to identify things that maybe are in some ways beyond your control, but you're just wrestling some of the control back and you're starting to identify and pick out elements that you could change and you could improve, which again gives you that power to make a change, to be more effective moving forward.
Oh, man, I love it. And I love that you bring that up because we get so narrow-minded. Right. I mean, and even myself, right, when we see situations like it's clearly that thing that broke.
Of course.
You take it back, you take that step back and you look at it and go, hey, well, where's my involvement? Where am I responsible for this whole chain of systems, these processes, these things that happen? Where am I responsible? Where could I have made a change? Where could I have made a change that would have maybe resulted in something else? And I love that you bring that up, man, because it's so important, because so often we just get caught up as this is the blame and that's it. But there's all these other things that lead up into that potentially that you have an impact and influence over.
Yeah, I mean, even think about this. You think about, and just a small example, think about you and somebody else sitting at a traffic light and somebody runs a red light and you have a green light and you go and that person T-bones you and maybe kills the passenger of your car. Very easy for you to say, that person's fault. And while that person does have an element of responsibility, should you have looked? Should you have yielded? Should you have been more aware? Probably. And so it's very difficult in a situation like that where it clearly is somebody else's fault and they clearly broke a rule or they clearly went against something that they should have gone against. But again, you've got to give yourself the power and the control, and you've got to wrestle that back so that you can make positive changes, lasting changes in your life. It does no good to blame anybody else and then just wash your hands of the responsibility of it. That doesn't teach you to grow. It doesn't help you grow.
I love that example you bring up here, because then that's going to lead into my next question here, man, for you is like, so many times we talk to people and they're like, but Richard, that excuse is real. It's fact. It's happened. That's what it is. And just like that example there you're talking about is like, it's fact that, yeah, we could easily say that guy ran that red light and he's in the wrong. But how do we discern what is fact and what is an excuse, and then keep our power still? And not only that, but move forward with it.
So there's one question that I ask myself probably 100 times a day, because things go wrong that often every single day, right? It might be something as minor as somebody leaves our mastermind group, or it might be that somebody gets sued or somebody gets offended by something I say, whatever. There's 1,000 things that could go wrong throughout the day, or I send out the wrong email, or I don't hit publish on my podcast. You know what I mean, okay? But here's what I ask myself. Whenever I find myself in a situation where it didn't go according to plan, I ask myself this one question. What can I learn? That's it. What can I learn? So if we use that traffic light scenario, yes, clearly somebody else's fault. A horrible situation. I mean, that person potentially becomes seriously injured or they pass away, right? Horrible situation. What can I learn from that scenario, right? If you don't get the promotion that you want because you think, quote unquote, this is office politics. It might be office politics. That might be true. But you're not going to learn anything from that. So rather than say, oh, it's office politics, wash my hands, walk away, I can't do anything about it, what can I learn? Well, maybe next time you ought to play the game, because that's part of the deal, right? I'm not saying to be to be a butt kiss or anything like that, but maybe you need to connect with your boss a little bit better so that when the next opportunity comes up, you're considered for that opportunity, right? So I think asking that question, what can I learn from this, is going to help you wrestle, again, all of that power that you should have so that you can improve in your life.
Beautiful, man. And I want to chime in here is that sometimes, especially as men, right, we just want to go and fix stuff, right? So we just want to fix ourselves. So when we're going through something bad, it's just to fix it and to put a Band-Aid on top of it so it's all good. And this is why I want to chime in here with you, Ryan, here. I mean, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, is that I think in that moment, so say in that car accident, right? Say in that time where you didn't get that promotion, you're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to process the feelings. You're allowed to get yourself to be vulnerable, right? And accept that, it sucks. It sucks that happened. Sure. It sucks that this is happening in my life. But at the same time, you got to have, and I think this is what you're saying, is you got to have at the back of your mind that question asking yourself so that you can trigger yourself out of that pattern of, so you can be vulnerable, but then you can be in a state where vulnerability plays around too long that you become a victim.
Right.
Your identity.
Well, and the other side of this too is emotions. A lot of people, and there's this idea of stoicism, right? We hear a lot about stoicism and the idea of emotions. And I think a lot of guys are probably more guilty of this than women, but we want to hide our emotions. We want to keep those emotions in check. We don't want to display or share those emotions. The reality is emotions are there to serve us. Even the ones that we would consider a negative emotion, like guilt or greed or fear, all of those emotions that we have as human beings are there for a reason. They're there to teach you. If I'm maybe coveting what, Richard, you have, why is that? That's an emotion that most people would look at as a negative emotion. Well, it can be, but it also can be a great motivator for me to do what I need to do to have the level of success that you do, right? Or if it's fear, is that fear just, is it not real, or is it actually trying to keep you alive, right? Like, why do you have these emotions? So rather than hide your emotions and rather than keep those things in check, my thought is try to understand your emotions. Why am I feeling greed? Why am I feeling fear? Why am I upset? Why am I angry? Why am I guilty? Because if you can start understanding why you're behaving the way you are and going through the emotions that you're currently going, those will begin to serve you rather than keep you hindered, keep you back from excelling in life.
Man, well put, man, well put. And then this leads me into the next question, brother, about excuses is, once we've learned how to manage it for ourselves, right? Then I think the next step is where we see it amongst our environment. Other
Mhm.
people, our family, our loved ones, they start throwing out excuses. And I want to hear from you, bro. Is like, what do you do when you clearly see someone who you love, maybe a friend, maybe a family member, and they're just throwing excuse after excuse? How do you deal with that? Like, what do you do to help them move forward? Or do you just walk away and let them process it to the point where they're ready to be, taking on that feedback?
Well, that's what it is. I mean, that's the reality. You can't say the right thing to the wrong person. And there's too many people out there that love their excuses. They love their life. They love being in misery and they love blaming on other people. There's nothing you could say to that person who's not completely ready that will help them see they're making and crafting a bunch of excuses. Nothing. So I've come to the conclusion, the realization that I'm going to share my light. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to share my truth and my story. I'm going to help those people who are genuinely interested in being helped and moving forward and progressing. The people that aren't, I wish them luck. I pray for them. I hope that they'll find their way. I hope that they'll have success. I hope they'll let down their barriers and they'll get rid of their excuses. But if it's somebody who I care about, so let me back up. So offering unsolicited feedback is a very sketchy path, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how you're going to take it. But if someone comes to me and says, hey, Ryan, I'm really trying to improve. Great. Can I give you some honest feedback? Absolutely. Well, I hear a lot of excuses coming from your mouth. Okay, that's going to sting. That's going to hurt somebody. But they asked, right? They asked for that feedback. And so I'm going to give them that feedback. This is part of the reason I decided to create Order of Man, which is a platform that allows us to share a message and turn on the light, if you will, and allow those people who are attracted to this light to come to it. And the ones that aren't, won't. Or they'll come and they'll realize this isn't for me and they'll leave. So having a platform like we do and having a platform like you do, and even this conversation within this podcast allows people to get the information, receive the information that are genuinely interested and ready to receive it. Now, if it comes to my family, for example, my kids is a prime example. I'm their father. I'm responsible for their well-being. I'm responsible for their growth. So I will offer unsolicited feedback to my children because that's my responsibility, right? That's my job.
Yeah.
And so I think the best thing that we can do is ask that same question. Like I will sit down and I will have conversations with my kids after school, especially if like my son, my 8-year-old son, last year he was being bullied at school. And we talked about it and I said, well, what can you learn from this situation? How can you handle yourself? And he came up with a list of great things that he can learn. Well, I can learn not to be a bully myself because I know how it feels. I can learn how to stand up for myself. I can learn how to defend myself. I can learn how to avoid conflict and stay out of these situations. I can learn how to be assertive in these types of situations so that I don't get picked on. And so we were able to go through a whole host of ways that he could improve the situation because I asked him one simple question. So if you're asking me, how do you help people recognize that they're creating excuses? It's great questions. And this is coaching. I mean, you're a coach. This is the ability to coach. It's not telling people what they need to hear. It's allowing them to discover it for themselves. So if somebody's crafting an excuse and you want to help them, ask them a question. Hey, so I realize that the economic environment isn't what you want it to be, and you're starting this business. What are you going to do about it? What can you learn from this situation? How are you going to move forward even though the economy is bad? They're going to start creating their own answers and eliminating those excuses in their head. You don't really have to do much except for bring the conversation to light.
Oh, I love it, man. And I think the most powerful thing that you shared here that I think most people might have missed, and I want to bring it back in here again, is that unsolicited advice. It's like how often in our lives we walk around, it's like someone's like, Ryan, I don't like that shirt you're wearing. It's just like, dude, I didn't even ask for that.
Yeah, so what? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you showed us how to do that. It's just like, hey, would you like some feedback? It's that simple. That's all you need to ask before you even give feedback, because there's nothing worse than someone just giving or jamming feedback in your face.
Right.
Ask for.
Right.
Makes them what happens? They just get defensive.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve that person. It's just a waste of breath when you start doing stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. Right, man. We could continue talking about this on and on. And I know you have so much more to share here, but we're going to start wrapping up the show, man. And as we wrap up, I'd love to start going into the quick fire question rounds, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
And so the first one I have for you is our signature question, man, is, if you could go back to any moment in your life and you could talk to little Ryan and you could give him one piece of advice that you know today, when would you go back to and what would you tell him, bro?
Interesting question. You know, for a long time, I sat on this idea of creating a business around order of man. I sat on it for years. I thought I wanted to do something else, and my financial planning practice was doing well at the time, and so I kept doing that. But I always had this thing burning in the back of my mind. So I would probably rewind 5 years and say, do this sooner, man. Do this sooner. Start sooner. I know you're afraid. I know you don't know everything you need to know. I know that you don't know if it'll work, but just do this sooner. Take action and let things work out and figure out things along the way. And I think too many people do that. We just don't have, we have these ideas. Everybody has an idea, but they don't take action on it because they're afraid. Just do it sooner. You'll figure that stuff out along the way. The barrier to entry for anything you want to do is extremely minimal at this point in our society and across the planet. So take advantage of it.
Oh, well said, man. Well said. And then we would have, where would order of man be 5 years from now? How amazing would that be?
Exactly.
Awesome, dude. Next question I have for you, brother, is I know you read a lot of books, right? Mm-hmm. I know that you have a lot of great books that you would recommend. But if there was absolutely just one book that the men here, the women here who are listening and watching in need to read, what would that book be, man?
Well, along the same thread lines of what we're talking about today, the book is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. I don't know if you've read that book or members of the audience have, but it is a great book. It talks about taking extreme ownership of your life. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin were Navy SEAL commanders in the Iraqi war. They got to Ramadi, Iraq, about 2 months before I left Iraq, and they're the most decorated, their unit is the most decorated special forces unit of the Iraqi war. But they use lessons from their battle in Ramadi, and they extract the lessons they can and how to apply that to real life and how to eliminate excuses, how to take ownership of your life. So that's the book I'd recommend, Extreme Ownership.
Awesome, man. We'll add that into the show notes.
Yes.
Next question I have for you, man. This is one I've been waiting, like seriously, man. I know we've been trying to get you on the show for a while now. And I got to ask you this one, man. As a order of man here, right? A question I have here that's always burning in my mind is like, you know, dude, and I know why we started, you know, these men movements, you know, because I think there's a huge gap where the modern world is and where the modern man is and how we're trying to bridge this gap. And if I could ask you, brother, from what you've seen and what you're doing here, what is the one thing more men could be doing for them to step up and become more of the modern man that the world needs them to be?
Responsibility. I mean, that's it. Everywhere you look in society today, people are shirking responsibility. It's not my fault. I want somebody else to do it. I want this government to do it, my company to do it, this corporation, this entity. Please, somebody else do it because I don't have what it takes. The reality is every single man has what it takes. He doesn't know that. He may not have it currently because again, the reality, he just hasn't pushed himself. And in society today, across the planet, we're not even expected to push ourselves. We want somebody else to take care of us. And we've given away all of our personal responsibility and individual liberty to an entity or a government or a society or an organization or even a single person with the hopes that they will do it for us. And I'm here to tell you that nobody else is going to do it for you. And even if they say they are, and even if they do to some degree, they're never going to do it for yourself as good as you could do it on your own. Mm-hmm. So I'm under the impression that I would rather literally reinvent the wheel than have somebody else tell me how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, where to do it. I want to take control of my life. And that means that, yes, there is some risk associated with that, but the greater risk is having somebody else do it and me living less than I'm meant to live.
No, man, I just gave us some space, man, to sit in because I was like, woof.
Yeah, that's right. Now you're going to get me fired up here. So,
and I thought you were already fired up, man. And it's like,
that's right. No, I haven't even begun yet, man. We can get started. We can even go more on that if another time, maybe.
Oh, man. And I think I really resonate with that, man, because you see it everywhere. It's just no one wants to say, I'm going to do this, right? Because if you do it and then you get it wrong, it's like, bam, man, the media shuts you down. The world shuts you down. Your colleagues that you thought were backing you up don't back you up anymore. And everyone just disappears on you. And I think that kind of fear like stops so many people from taking that responsibility. And I'm just so glad that you brought that up, man, because it's huge.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Oh, man. And, man, the last question I have here for you, brother, is like, man, as we wrap up the show here, Ryan, I mean, we've talked a lot about excuses, about responsibilities. And is there anything else you want to add before that we didn't, I guess, get a chance to talk about on this show here today, man?
Yeah, I think part of this, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know, right? We get wrapped up in this box and it's our lives and it's difficult for us to see ourselves, but this is what separates us as humans. We can have a thought and then immediately we can think about the thought that we just had. So this consciousness, this idea of consciousness is something that separates us as a species from other animals, which is actually pretty cool that we can do this. Not enough of us use this. We just go, we're not very deliberate about our day or intentional about our day. We just go kind of by default, whatever happens, happens, and the wind pushes us where it's going to push us. So if you really and truly want to identify and see if you are creating excuses in your life, see if you're giving away more power than you need to, I think it's the idea of self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is a buzzword. Everybody says it, but it's the reason that we talk about it so much is because it's true. So I would encourage anybody, I'm going to try to go through this as briefly as I can, to really consider some daily planning. You have to plan out your day. I mean, literally getting a pen and paper out, or a notepad, or your Google Calendar, whatever it is you use, and plan out every single day. And then you go through and you start executing your day, and you ask that question, what can I learn? And you should be asking that question 100, 1,000, 100,000 times a week, because that's going to give you the control back. And that's going to help you just naturally get rid of the excuses when you start thinking about not what's outside of my control, but what's within my control. All right, so daily planning, and then the asking the question, what can I learn from this? And then the last thing I would want to share is an after-action review. I don't know if you guys talk about this much. Everybody talks about a daily plan and why it's so important in a morning routine. All of that stuff's critical. I say you do that stuff, but you need to go back and you need to evaluate your day. I do this every single day, and I ask myself a series of questions in my what I call after-action review, which is a military term. And I'll go back and I'll say, okay, what did I want to accomplish today? What did I actually accomplish? What did I want to do that I wasn't able to get done? Why didn't I get that stuff done? And then what am I going to do better tomorrow? And so you have this starting point where you're planning out your day. You have the action of going throughout the day. What can I learn? And then you're capping every single day with the after action review, looking back and figuring out how you can be better tomorrow. And that's what I would leave you with.
Man, I love that after action review, man, because I think it's so important. So often if we do just the daily planning, then it just becomes like a to-do list.
Right.
Like, oh, I didn't do it today. Oh, well, I'll do it tomorrow.
Exactly.
We actually sit down and go, what stopped me from doing that? Was it because I was lazy? Was it because I didn't want to do it? Was it because I felt like it's too hard, or I didn't get the support? I mean, if we ask ourselves that question, and I think this is something I got to start doing for myself as well, man. I love that you bring it up because it's huge. And this is something I got to start applying here. So,
absolutely.
Love it, man. Love it. And so, Ryan, man, for the people who want to learn more about what you're doing, to connect with you, where's the best place they can go?
Yeah, just go to our headquarters, which is orderman.com. Everything's over there. So our podcast, the blog, you can join the Facebook group over there. If you want to go exclusively to the Facebook group, again, this is for men only, but you can go to facebook.com/groups/orderofman. You can connect with, I think we're just under 10,000 guys in that group now, which is pretty cool to see. Yeah, so those are the two, orderman.com and then our Facebook group. I hope to see everybody there. We're having some great conversations about masculinity, what it means to be a man, and a lot of the guys within the group and within our the order, if you will, are really seeing some big improvements in every single area of their life, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Awesome, dude. Awesome, man. And then, as I said, man, been an absolute honor, bro, to have you on the show here, man, just sharing your wisdom, and I'm so glad I got you on the show, bro. Yeah,
Rich, I appreciate you and all your work, man. Thanks a ton for having me on the show today.
Oh, thank you, man. And so, guys, this wraps up another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast with the man of the order himself, Ryan Michler, on the show. And I know this about Ryan. I know Ryan doesn't want this to be a secret. This episode can't be a secret. So we need to make sure we share this out so that Ryan's message gets out there into the world, so you can stop having excuses. So people don't live in the world of excuses. They just live in the world of results. So if you want more results, then give us more stars. If you think it only deserves 1 star, then I'm fine with that. If it deserves 5, that's fine with it. But I know we need to get this message out there. Of course, guys, head on over to richardfood.com to catch all the resources that Ryan has shared here on the show. And remember, guys, go out there, go live with love and go smash it. I'll see you again on the next one.